Close the doors of your mind. Close the gates of your mind. Close the gates of your palace, your ba'ith, your ahal, your ohel, your tent, your mishkan, your mikdash, your haikal. And bring your mind to balance. Bring your body to balance. Bring your mind to balance within yourself. Within your 12 cranial nerves, within your 12 melanin centers, within your yod and your kaf, which controls everything you do. And when you're regal, that your feet must be washed, even as Yahusha washed our feet. And we should wash each other, one another's feet, always, as we maintain the righteousness and the cleanness of Yahuwah Elohim. For today is a day of freedom. Today is a day of that Yahuwah has given to us as a Shabbatun, as a Shabbat, that we may cease from our labors and our work, and the things that we do in our selfish self to provide for our selfish self, to have something to boast about in this world, and to put all these things aside, that we may acknowledge the one who made all of the Elohims and all of the Shama'ims on the earth, the one who established the ends of the earth, whether they're good or whether they're evil, the one who gives all beings consciousness, whether they're good or whether they're evil, Yahuwah Elohim. For he made all of the heart of the earth, all the mountains and streams, even the highest mountains, and all the mountains and streams under the earth, and even the waters that flow from his throne, his Chdsh, his Sapir throne, Yahuwah Elohim. So as we move forward in the truth, the Amath of Yahuwah. For the Amath is what's going to set you free. No song is going to set you free. No music is going to set you free. The Debar will make you free. And it's better to hear the Debar and the rebuke and the Tukah of the wise than hear the song of a fool or some flattery from someone's mouth. So this is the book of 2nd Baruch, Pseudepigrapha. 2nd Baruch, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1, 2nd Baruch, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1, 2nd Baruch, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1, Chapter 51. Chapter 51. Chapter 51, Verse 1. All that, just to get here. And it will happen after this day which he appointed is over, that both the shape of those who are found to be guilty, as also the kabod of those who have proved to be righteous, will be changed. So you look at all the things that one has to cleanse out of their house and their mind in these first 16 days. One has to really pay attention to oneself. And you have to make changes. For the shape of those who act wickedly will be made more evil. It is now, so they shall suffer torment. So it's about time that one says, you know what? I'm tired of being tormented. I'm tired of the shadim and the demons tormenting my mind. I'm tired of all of these things. You have to get to the point where you got to make the change. And you know how it's going to happen? And it says, also, as for the kabod of those who prove to be righteous on the account of my law, my Torah. So how are you going to prove that you're righteous? It'd be our righteousness if we keep his commandments, his mitzvah. But guess what? But it says right here, those who possessed intelligence in their life, and those who planted the root of wisdom in their heart. Because if you have to plant a wickedness in your heart, it's going to be a different type of behavior than those who planted the root of Hakmah, wisdom in their heart. And you need wisdom. Their splendor will then be glorified by transformations. So these are all be renewed in the ruach of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your consciousness. And guess what? And it says, and the shape of their face will be changed. Right? The shape of your face, your panim, your countenance will be changed. It's just like Yusuf when he was in the prison. And what happened when he was in the prison? He fasted and prayed while he was in the prison, and you allowed him to maintain his beauty of countenance. Why? Because usually when you go to a prison cell and you're tormented, guess what happens? You lose all your beauty and your countenance. But he decided, being that I'm in prison and I've done things and I've said things, I was exalted in my mind at one point. You know what he did? He cast me down. And guess what happens? You know what happens when you get cast down? And he says, it's glorified by transformations, and the shape of their face will be changed into light of their beauty, so that they may acquire and receive underlying receive the underlying world which is promised to them. So please don't be thinking you're going to be ugly and take on the Malkut. It's a different type of behavior. It ain't got nothing to do with nothing ugly. You know, I say nothing filthy. That's what we talked about. Awake, O Zen, Oz, right? Put on strength, put on your tikfarat, your beautiful garments. It's about beauty. This has nothing to do with something wicked. Wicked is the filthy, it's disgusting, it's a beautiful house on the outside, but you go in and it's filthy on the inside, right? So it's not about filth and dirt and grime and dust and all that. That creates demons, right? So here we go. And it says, and the shape of their face will be changed into light, their beauty, so that they may acquire and receive the undying world, which is promised to them. Therefore, especially they who will then come will be sad, because they despise my law. Right? Because you despised it. What do you mean despise the Torah? You despise wisdom. You despise wisdom and nurture. Therefore, your children are, your wives are wicked, and your children are wicked, and your wives are wicked, because you despise wisdom and nurture. That's what the book of Sirach says. You despise wisdom and nurture. He said, I talked about it, what, 3 years ago. You despise wisdom and nurture, therefore your wives are wicked, your children are wicked. Right? Everybody wicked. Why? Because this. And you know what it says? Therefore, especially they who will then come will be sad, because they despise the Torah and stop their ears, lest they hear wisdom and receive intelligence. This is why you got to close the doors of your mind, right? Just like Ezra said, Nefesh, receive wisdom and instruction. He said that to himself. You got to say this as an affirmation to yourself when you wake up. You have to. Receive wisdom and instruction from Yahuwah himself. You got to say that to yourself. Right? But here we go. This is the last couple things out of this. And it says, and when they therefore will see that those over whom they are exalted now will then be more exalted and kabod than they, then both these and those will be changed, these into the splendor of Malachim, and those into startling visions and horrible shapes, and they will waste away even more. For they will first seed, and then they will go away to be tormented. Right? He say, or, Oz, put on your beautiful garments. See. Because if you don't, then guess what? Miracles, however, will appear at their own time to those who are saved because of their works, and from whom the Torah is now a hope and intelligence and expectation and wisdom and trust. So we look at this day. Look at the 15th Yom of the first month. Right? Look at Nysan. We look at that hasty flight. We look at all these things in Abyb. Why? That means green ears. Like, you should look outside. You should see the buds in the plants now. You should see the nice little bud on the plants, right? You're starting to see them come on the trees. They're starting to come up, and that's happening inside of you. The very same thing. Those little buds coming up, you see some things rise up. You're like, what is that? That's that little weed by your tree that's rising up on the bottom of the roots. You know, you look about a tree, and you got a little tree on the side, you see like some roots come up out of the ground. You be like, what that's that? I thought I buried that. I thought I buried that idol. I thought I got rid of that idol. I thought I got rid of that person. I thought I got rid of that thing. But if for some reason it just rose up out of the side of my tree, I'm like, what's that? That's that stuff. You be like, oh, right? And you can see this around nature itself. You can see this. And you be like, man, where'd that come from? Why is that next to my apple tree? That shouldn't be next to my apple tree. I got to get that thing out of there. Out of my yard, out of my garden, out of my field. Right? You got to pull these things up. They're going to start rising. You'll start to see people going to start doing stuff. Other people going to start doing stuff. People in the past going to start doing stuff. You're going to start to see behavior. You're gonna hear Satan's voice. If you cleanse yourself properly, you can hear Shaitan trying to get you to do stuff. You can hear him go fly around your head. You feel him in your mind. If you really cleanse yourself and got it all out of you, you're gonna hear the demons. You're gonna see him, you're gonna hear him, and you just like he said, when an unclean ruach go out of a man or a woman or a child, and he found it swept, he's finding it swept and garnished with me, he coming around every other day just to check and see if it's still clean. And then you know what he does after that? He brings 7 other ruachs, 7 other spirits more wickeder than himself. The only thing he's looking for is what? To get back in. And if you're not really conscious of your filth and your dirt and how you clean yourself inwardly and outwardly, then you're going to find yourself infested with demons and roaches. Those are spirits. These are all things. You can see these things in your house. You be like, man, what's that running on the floor? Amazing they only come out at night. You be like, you know why they don't come out at night? They don't want to be seen when the day kind of comes, because they hate the light. They don't want to come to the light lest their deeds be reproved and they get killed. This is the whole point of this whole thing. These are all things you see in nature. These are all things you see with the Ramiz, with the Dagar, with the Bahima, with the Tahanim, right? These are all things that you have to understand with everything, right? So this is all point, right? This is Nazarene, actually the Shalakim, suggestions of the old serpent. And it says, above all, therefore, you ought to understand the deception of the old serpent in the Kash, the old dragon, right here, a dragon, a flying serpent, right? Whether on the earth, on the surface of the earth, under the earth, or in the Shamayim, in the Rakia, space. The old Nakash, the dragon, and his cunning suggestions who deceive you as it were by prudence. And he act like he did something. And as by sort reasons creep through your senses and deceiving you a great gain. Them 12 cranial nerves that we talked about, the 12 cranial nerves. Yeah, he gonna try to deceive you in one of them nerves. He gonna get on your nerve. And that nerve's gonna actually hit your mind. You gonna get a migraine. He gonna attack your mind. He gonna attack your mind. Therefore, he enunciates in your minds opinions of Elohim of whatsoever kinds, whatever kind, because he loved them opinions. He like, yeah, I like to put my own opinion. You ain't got to be all circumcised like that. Nah, you ain't got to do that. Man, you ain't got to keep no Chag Matsah. You ain't got to do that. That ain't got nothing to do with no salvation. You know what you can do? You can do your own thing. You can do your own way. You can make up your own stuff. Right? Who cares about those marriage laws? I don't care. I don't care about that. He enunciates in your minds. Okay. Therefore, he enunciates in your minds opinions of Elohim of whatsoever kinds, only that your sins is his comfort. That's all he wants. He wants you to sin. He wants you to sin. That's all he wants you to do. And once he gets you to sin, then he get comfortable. Even it's inside of people. Understand, people are like this. If they can get you to sin, then they get comfortable about their own life. So they need you to sin so they get comfortable about the wrong they did to you or the wrong they did to other people. And then you want you to sin so they can feel better about the evil and raw that they did to somebody else. But if you take accountability for what you've done, like that man of Elohim did when he said, I lied to that man and I got this man killed. He disobeyed Yahuwah. But then I did that to him. So then now I should be dead, not him. Because he was doing the things right. And here I am trying to get him to do things wrong. And therefore, you a sinner. And then you know what? But people don't want to take accountability. They just need you to sin so they can feel better about themselves. Right? For his immorality was condemned from the beginning to eat dust. He was just like the Nakash. You just like the Nakash. For that he caused to be again resolved to the dust him who had been taken from the dust. And when you start proclaiming you like Adam and all that, he want to bring you back to the dust. Ha ha ha, look at you. That's the whole point. He want to take you down so he can feel better about himself for all the raw evil that he did to somebody else. And these are all the things. Remember, we're on the 15th day. We still got 2 more days to get the filth out of your house. And it's still, people say, why? I took Pesach. Remember, when they came out of Mizraim, that little lamb didn't get that sin out of them. Even when Yahusha died, rose, and ascended, that sin ain't get out of nobody. That sin's still there. That Nakash, that Satan, the Shaitan is still inside of you, and he can manifest at any time. If you don't actually put down those things that exalts itself against the knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach and the understanding of the Torah, then you're going to find yourself in the control of him again. Even after Yahushua died, rose, and ascended. And it says, for that he caused to be again resolved to the dust, he who was taken from the dust, even to the time when your beings will be restored. When you are brought through the fire, as we will instruct you the full time. You people say, man, being brought through the fire is drinking that cup that Yahushua did. Just past yesterday, you were remembering the cup that he drank. See, we drinking the natural cup with some juice and some herbs and a piece of bread. And you feeling great. And the Lamb of Yahuwah, who took away the sin of the world, the one with the 7 horns and the 7 eyes, with the 7 ruachs inside, right? 777, right? But then you asking yourself, can you drink of that same cup that he drank? I could take a little sip, but then at the same time, can you continually do it? And it says, even to the time when your beings will be restored, being brought through the fire, as we will instruct you more fully at another time, right? From him, therefore, proceeds all errors and doubts. Remember, there are many things you can say about being brought through the fire. But from Satan, Shaitan, proceeds all errors and doubts. That's the whole point of even this time and even after this time. By which you are driven from Amunah, faith, and belief in one Elohim, right? Because Yahuwah is Achad. He's trying to drive you from belief. Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you believe? Anybody can say, I believe. It's just when the situation comes, do you believe? When the people come back, do you believe? Do you believe? That's all it's about. Because it's not about what happens when everything is quiet. Ain't nothing happening. It's about what happens when things get erratic. How are you responding? Respond to the situation. Right? Because this is an appointed time. Either you're going to have the root of wickedness or the root of righteousness. And it's really that simple. This 2 Chronicles 29, 15 through 17. He said, why are we still on it? Because we still on the 16 days. That's why I'm still talking. That's why you're still talking about it. They gathered their brothers and consecrated themselves and went in as the king had commanded, right? By the words of Yahuwah to cleanse the house of Yahuwah, right? So understand the Ba'ith of Yahuwah. The Kohanim, the priest, went into the inner part of the house of Yahuwah to cleanse it, right? So the cleaning process is still going on because Mastama may have risen inside of your heart and your mind. Shaitan may have gotten out of prison, and the gates of Sheol may not be closed inside of you yet. Right? Because you got to clean the filth out of your house. The priest went into the inner part of the house to cleanse it, and they brought out all the uncleanness that they found in the temple of Yahuwah, into the court of the house of Yahuwah. And Louis took it and carried it out to the brook Kidron, right? So this is very key. They carried it out to the brook Kidron. They had to find some water. He said, what type of water is that they had to go to and throw that stuff at? And they began to consecrate on the first day of the first month. They began to do that, where we started that. You can say it, but be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving your own self. So who deceived? I didn't start on the first day. I didn't want to do it. So therefore, it's all your fault. You know how they say, it's your fault. It's your fault. No, it's not my fault. Stop blaming me for your own doings and not wanting to do something. It has nothing to do with me. You know how people say? They always want to blame somebody, like Adam in the garden. That's what Adam did in the garden when they sinned. He like, no, it's your fault. Everybody want to blame somebody. No, it's you, Nakash. It's you, Kua. It's you, Adam. Right? Stop blaming somebody else for your stuff. Right? You know, that's what people do. They began to consecrate themselves on the first day of the first month, and on the 8th day of the month, they came to the Eulam of Yahuwah, the vestibule, right? They came right to the porch. And what happened? Then for 8 days, they consecrated the house of Yahuwah, and on the 16th day of the first month, they finished. So we on the 15th day. Are you finished yet? Go ahead and say you finished. Then Yahushua finished it on the cross yesterday. He said it was finished for him. It is finished for me. Because he said it was finished. And he rested the Shabbat day, even as this, and he rested, right? They put him in the grave, right? But that was yesterday. What's today? And on the first day, on the 16th day of the first month, they finished. You ain't done. You know what I'm saying? I ain't finished yet. No, you ain't finished yet. So please don't be thinking you finished. It is finished. See, Yahushua finished it. I can go back to doing what I was supposed to do. I can go back to sinning. No, you can't do that. But that's the mindset of some people. But if you take that away, now I just took that away from you. Now you can't. It's like, man, you done took that away. Now I can't do that? No. I restricted you. Now you got 16 more days. You got 2 more days. You still got to finish something before the 3rd day. You have to finish before the 3rd day. And you have to make sure it's right before the 3rd day. Before the 16th day at evening, you need to make sure at evening time on the 16th day, all this thing is over with. Because there's a part of you that needs to be transformed. And you need to understand that. Right? So that word for brothers is Ach. Ach. It means brother of the same parents. We're talking about biological brothers, right? You know how we got these spiritual brothers, right? These were biological brothers, the 12 tribes of Yasharal, right? This is 12 tribes of Yasharal. You say, so why? It's a biological people, right? This is Psalms 147, Tahalim 147, Psalms 147 and 17. Actually, 147 and 15. Tahalim 147 and 15. He sends out his command to the Adats. His word runs swiftly. So it's been running for a long time. Remember I was talking about the man of Elohim when he spoke to the bar against Jeroboam. It was still in the air now. So Jeroboam had a chance to repent, but he didn't. Right? And guess what it says? He gives snow like wool, and he scatters frost like ashes. Man, he be scattering it just like ashes. He hurls down his crystals of ice like crumbs. Who can stand before his cold? Can you? When Yahuwah stand before a cold, when it's negative 25, just like we just passed all them blizzards and ice and storm and hail and all that, you gonna stand outside? No, you're not gonna be outside. You know what you're gonna do? I need to get by a fire. I need to get my behind in the house. I need to get my behind under a tent somewhere with some heat in it. Why? He sends out his word and melts them. He said that's the only way you're gonna get out. When you get cold-hearted, you need the debar to melt your heart. And that's what we went to, from winter to what? Spring. And where did he put the sun at? The ecliptic plane done came back, and now the bud's starting to come. And guess what? He makes the wind blow and his waters to flow. He declares his word, his debar to Yaakov. Why? Because these are brothers of the same parents. Are they not? Let me guess. You want to make that up? He establishes and rules to Yasharal. To who? To Yasharal. He has now dealt so with any other nation. Or Oz. Put on your beautiful garments, Yasharal. Saum. You know what it says? They do not know his rules, praise Yahuwah, right? The other people don't know what they're supposed to do. Why do you think Shaul was like, if you get circumcised, Mashiach profit you nothing. You know why? Because if you get circumcised, you obligated to keep the whole Torah. And you know what? You haven't even learned it all yet. You know what you're going to be doing? You're going to be stumbling all over the place because you don't know what to do. Because you don't fully understand it. And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to start doing it, and then guess what? They're going to start transgressing. They're going to be just like the people in times past. The same people. Not fully understanding what's been ratified, what's been right? You get a lot of con and all these things, but you're going to get punished for it. But it says they gathered their brothers, right? That word for brothers is brother of the same parents, right? Back to the slide. Relatives, kinship, same tribe, right? Because we had different tribes for different tasks, and those tribes had strangers and foreigners inside those tribes that were servants to those tribes. That were men servants and maid servants. They even had bought oxen from other nations and other tribes. They bought all types of animals and things, and they herded them. They did all these things, right? You can use the word slave, but it wasn't the word slave. So you hear it say the word slave, it mean you say that today, it's like a bad word, right? Because it's a different type of. Slave comes with a mistreatment of male servants and female servants. When you start using words like shifka and Abyb, it's a different type of standard, right? Because those letters have meanings and things you cannot do according to Torah. These are the things that are different, right? But it means what? Relative, kinship, same tribe, right? Reciprocal, right? Relationship, a brother, a kindred, like, right? So these are all biological. This is a biological family. Because you know you got the Ruach, according to the Ruach, he is not a Yehudi, which is one outwardly, merely outwardly. But at the same time, a Yehudi, a real tribe of Yehuda from the other flesh, is circumcised in the foreskin of their flesh. And if you're going to say you're a tribe of Yehuda, you got to be circumcised in the foreskin of your flesh. Literally. This ain't literally. Just like they wear them literal garments on. I got to put on the zizits, right? So you literally can do that, but you can't literally do the other stuff. So you're a hypocrite, just like any other thing that people say. Outwardly, you look like you righteous, right? But inwardly, you are Satan, Shaitan. He done opened the gates up and he done took over, right? So that word for, consecrated. That word for consecrated is kudash. Kuf dalaf shun, right? That's kudash. It means to be sanctified, to be separated. He says, he told the brothers, the ox, to consecrate themselves, to be sanctified, to be separated, to be set apart, to be hallowed. Right? These are all things that one has to do within themselves, to set apart as sacred. Right? This is sacred stuff. This is real sacred. Consecrated and dedicated. Dedicated, consecrated, to regard or treat as sacred. Right? All it to prepare, to proclaim and to purify. Right? We still got 2 more days. And these are all a part of the transformations that have to take place. And you ain't gonna get no transformation if you ain't Kadash. I assure you of that. You're gonna transform yourself into a Malaki of Satan, Shaitan. And especially if at the 3rd day, you're gonna transform yourself into the Malaki of Shaitan, and you're gonna have errors and doubts about what takes place on the 3rd day. I promise you. Especially if you did something evil this day, 1st day, even you became a fool during Pesach. All these things take place. And Yahuwah is not playing, right? It says, verse 16, it says, the priest went into the inner part, right? So that word for inner part is painima. Remember we talked about in 2nd Baruch, we talked about the face of the countenance of the face is going to change. Painima, inside and within. Faceward. Right? Faceward. These are all a part of your inner man, right? Your painima, your face gonna change when you cleanse your inner man out. This is why your inner, he said, why people look the way they look. Their inner man is messed up. It has nothing to do with their outer man. It's just the inner being of themselves. Why they don't look their best? It's the inner being within themselves. Why they not doing, it's the inner side of them. It has nothing to do with the outer man. It's what's in their heart and their mind and liver and their kidneys. It's in their mind and their 12 cranial nerves. What's in your 12 cranial nerve? What's in your 12 manners of fruit that's hindering you from doing it? And you know what that is. People say, I don't know what that heavy thing is. I don't know what that thing is. Yes, you do. And then Yahuwah show it to you in your face and you be like, Yeah, see what that is? That's the heavy thing you got. That's the thing you got to get rid of. And he said, why? You got to take Shaitan down. It's just really that simple. It means face war, indoors, because your enemies are pursuing you. That's Amalek. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's Amalek. It's Shaitan. He's like a roaring lion seeking you and pursuing you to destroy you. That's all he's using. He's just using people. Right? That's all he does. Right? So that is panima. Because you talk about the face, the countenance. A man's wisdom make his face to shine. If you take wisdom on the inside, like Second Baruch, they received the wisdom on the inside of their heart. They didn't despise it. That's why they despise Yahushua Mashiach. Right? That's why you got to be on time. Right? That's what he says. Right? So that word for uncleanness is, and the Khan went into the inner part, right, the panima of the house of Yahuwah, and to cleanse it, and they brought out the uncleanness. Huh? They brought out the uncleanness within the house. And guess what that is? Tumor. You know how they say tumor? You got a tumor. And where a tumor at? Oh, let me guess. A tumor is on the outside of your body. No, a tumor starts on the inside. And if it gets worse, then it'll show on your outside. A tumor is on the inside. Why do you think we eat bitter herbs? What do bitter herbs do? Kill your tumors. Yeah. Dandelion, cilantro, horseradish root, garlic, something that's just ginger, some things that's in your body that is spicy as heck. Oregano oil, you take some of that, you see what happens, right? That stuff kill everything inside of your inner man. Black seed oil, right? These are all a part of your inward man. I mean, we just talking about natural herbs, but then you start talking about the bar, the word of Yahuwah. He said, cleanse your inner man. Amazing, they got tumor. You got a tumor. And they make fun of you and make fun of you in movies and be saying tumor. But in actuality, you might want to get that stuff out of your head with that spell casting, right? Out of Hollywood, made from the holly tree. Because they come from the holly tree. The druid wizards would use a holly wood and cast spells on you through a holly tree. And you think, these druids don't exist. Okay, then why they dress up in a hoodie, a black hoodie? Just like Malak Rasha, the reptilian shape-shifting devil, demon, right? So guess what? You got the same thing. You cast a spell on somebody trying to get him to commit fornication, adultery, lying. You be swindling, false accusing. You a druid Hollywood priest. You a Hollywood. I'm a Hollywood you, right? All this stuff is true. He said, nah, that's not true. Okay. But it means, tuma means uncleanness, right? So that's anything unclean. Sexual, right? That's anything sexual. You can't do that. You say, man, no, you can't do it. And guess what? You want to go do it. Do it during this time and create a child. During this time, disobey Yahuwah, create a child. And you do it around this time. You say, go ahead and do it then and see what happens. He just said, cleanse all uncleanness out of your tent for the first 16 days. This is why I told you, you're going to want to put a lot of things aside or you're going to find yourself in some serious trouble. Right? So this is the book of, he said what? Right, so this is the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus chapter 5. The book of Leviticus chapter 5 and verse 1. Leviticus Yikra, Leviticus chapter 5 verse 1. If anyone sins in that he hears a public adjuration to testify, and though he is a witness, whether he has seen or come to know the matter, yet does not speak, he shall bear his iniquity. So this is why it ain't my fault. He say, you got to say something. Or if anyone touches an unclean thing, whether a carcass or of an unclean wild animal, or a carcass of an unclean livestock, or the carcass of an unclean swarming thing, and it is hidden from him, and he has become unclean and realizes his guilt, or he touches human uncleanness, of whatsoever sort the uncleanness may be with which one becomes unclean and is hidden from him, when he comes to know it and realizes guilt, or if anyone utters with his lips, he said they got to the vestibule. Remember we talked about the Eul, right? Eulam, right? We talked about getting there. What did he do? When he comes to know it and realizes guilt, or if anyone utters with his lips rash oaths to do evil or to do good, any sort or rash oath that people swear, and it be hidden from him, when he comes to know it and he realizes his guilt in any of these, when he realizes his guilt in any of these and confesses the sin that he has committed, he shall bring to Yahuwah his compensation for the sin that he has committed. Now you see why. These are all a part of it. This is not a game. And people say, yeah, it's not. I remember I was telling about how much you got. Nobody, he say, man, it's a lot of things that Yahusha did that people don't even understand. Right? So this is the book of Leviticus chapter 18 and verse 12. Leviticus chapter 18 verse 12. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. It is your father's relative. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister. She is your mother's sister, relative. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. That is, you shall not approach his wife. She is your aunt. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She is your wife, your son's wife. You shall not uncover the nakedness that you shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife. It is your brother's nakedness. You shall not cover the unnakedness of a woman or of her daughter. And you shall not take her son's daughter and her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. They are relatives. It is depravity. And you shall not take a woman as a rival wife to her sister, uncovering her nakedness while her sister is still alive. You shall not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness while she is in her menstrual uncleanness. You shall not, you don't go sleep with her. You shall not uncover or lie sexually with your neighbor's wife, and so make yourself unclean with her. Right? So you got to clean all the uncleanness out of your house. He say, man, all that uncleanness ain't out of there. Even in the thoughts of your mind. You got to get it out of your thoughts. You shall not lie sexually with your neighbor's wife, so to make yourself unclean with her. You shall not give any of your children to offer them to Molech, and so profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. So that's uncleanness too. So what you done did, right? That's uncleanness too. You still got 2 days. You got to get all the filth out of your house. And you shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination, right? These are all things sexual, right? This is serious, right? And you shall not lie with an animal, so to make yourself unclean with it, right? That's all things animalistic, right? Neither shall any woman give herself to an animal to lie with it. It is perversion. All these things is unclean. Do not make yourselves unclean by any of these things. By all these things, the nations I am driving out before you have become unclean, and the land become unclean, so that I punish its iniquity, and the land vomit out its inhabitants. Right? So you don't want that to happen. The only reason we did that, there's a lot of unclean things. Let me read one. Because this is not my. He said all these things that people want to know is right there, and you can go read it for yourself. Right? But they don't want to do that. You know why they don't want to do it? Because they got other stuff to do, which in turn makes them unclean. Right? And that's all a part of it. Right? So this is the book of Deuteronomy. Dabarim. Actually, go to Leviticus chapter 13. Leviticus 13 and 1. 13:45. 13 and 40. Actually, Leviticus 13:45. Leviticus 13:45. The leprous person who has the disease shall wear torn clothes and let the hair of his head hang loose, and shall cover his upper lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. Right? You got to understand what unclean is. Unclean, unclean. You got to cry out loud. Unclean, unclean. You got to let people know Unclean, unclean. Why? So they don't touch you. You know they ain't gonna do nothing. When you unclean, you want somebody to touch you. And then guess what happened? This don't even, you say, man, I gotta get the filth out of my house again. Because of your behind. Because you don't want to tell nobody, unclean, unclean. You don't want to let nobody know you unclean. You know what you do? Just like a woman in a minstrel. Unclean, unclean. You need to say something, right? Open your mouth and speak. The same thing with another person. You unclean. You know you unclean. Unclean, unclean. Don't touch me. You're going to hug somebody. You want to touch somebody. I want to reach out and touch you. Lay my hands on you. Pray for you. No, you ain't praying for me. Go sit down somewhere. He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. So these are all a part of this whole transformation. He is unclean. He shall live alone. Unclean, unclean. His dwelling shall be outside the camp, right? So these are all a part of this whole, what? Transformation. You know what people say? How did you get in? Matter of fact, how did you get in the camp? Because everybody unclean. So how did Yahushua get us in the camp? How he get us in? How he get us in? Unclean, unclean. Right? How he get us in? How he get us unclean? He said you should be outside the camp. And people say, what? People have no idea. Right. So this is the book of, because it's a part of it. It's a part of this whole thing. Right. This is the book of Hebrews. Abyb. Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 7. Abyb, Hebrews chapter 13 verse 7. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 7. Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of Yahuwah, Elohim. Why? That's like the man of Elohim cried against the altar. And he knew what he did. You know, or the woman of Elohim, Huldah, or Deborah, who spoke to the bar. Why? Because it's just like that. Because they literally leading you places. You don't even know it. You thinking like, yeah, who cares what that man says? Who cares what that woman said? Okay. You go ahead and you do it anyway and see what happens. I'm not going to be the one to tell you. You just going to find out when you get punished. It's really that simple. Just like a mother in the house. I told you how to do something, you did it anyway. So therefore, you get punished. Same thing with a father. Right? Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of Yahuwah, consider the outcome of their way and imitate their emunah. Why? Just like a child imitates your parents, not imitating some random person that you meet, right? If your parents walked in truth at the bar and they walking more uprightly than the person speaking at the bar, why are you following the person who's speaking at the bar? You need to walk uprightly and follow your parents who walking more uprightly than the person who's speaking at the bar. Or are you going to find yourself in sin? You're going to find yourself doing something outside of the bar because you thinking that everybody the same and everybody not. And some people are unclean and some people not. Some people are full of wickedness and hatred and some are not. But you should make that choice, right? You got to make that choice for yourself. Or no, do it. And imitate their emunah. Imitate their emunah. Yahushua Mashiach is the same yesterday, today, and forever. As past, present, and future. Before Abraham was, I am. His steps, he did no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. Who was the person that spoke to the Shalakim and all these people at the bar? Yahushua Mashiach himself. Do not be led away by diverse and strange teachings, right? He says stranger things, right? You start uttering strange things out of your mouth. Because there's a lot of strange things. For it is good for the heart to be strengthened by Khan. Why? Because you know the Khan that Yahuwah has given to you, you don't even deserve to be here. Not by foods which have not been benefiting those who devoted to them, right? You know how people have all these different foods that they make sure they don't eat, or they have all these strict diets. That ain't gonna stop you from doing anything that's on here right here with your tumor. I promise you that. Not one herb, not one piece of food. It ain't gonna stop none of this stuff. I promise you. This stuff ain't going nowhere. It's always here. Sexual immorality, adultery, fornication, pornography, OnlyFans, all that stuff, man. These people, these things are here. This stuff been here for thousands of years. It ain't going nowhere. You just gotta say, hey, you know what? I gotta be separate from all these things. You gotta make that decision. The same way yesterday, today, and forever. Do not be led away by diverse and strange teaching, for it is good for the heart to be strengthened by Khan, not by food which have been benefiting those who devoted to them. Right? You can eat all the food you want, but if you never fast, you'll never understand what this is, what we're talking about. We have an altar from which those who serve the tent have no right to eat. Huh? That's the altar, you know, the ones who serve the tent. And why would he say serve the tent? Because there were certain Kohanim during that time that was serving the tent meat, right? But they weren't purified enough. They didn't understand Yahushua Mashiach, so they couldn't partake of what they were partaking of, or understand Yahushua Mashiach in the Torah for some reason. For the bodies of those animals whose blood is brought into the Qahalath place by the High Ka'an as sacrifice for sin are burned outside the camp. Huh? Unclean, right? They burned outside the camp, right? Everything burned outside the camp. So Yahushua also suffered outside the gate. Unclean. That's Yahushua Mashiach. That was him. He was that unclean person that everybody thought was unclean outside the camp, bearing all our sins. Unclean, that's Yahushua. Why do you think he cried out twice? Unclean. He cried out once on totality on the cross, unclean, and he finally gave it the Ruach. That was him. He was letting you know, unclean. And you know what happens? You know, people start laughing, but it's funny though. Abraham was glad to see my day. And he laughed too. His wife laughed. That's so funny. Unclean. Right? But that's what he did. And he said, high priest and the sacrifice for the sin and burned outside the camp. So Yahushua also suffered outside the gate in order to sanctify the people through his own blood. Now you see why. He had to sanctify the people with his own blood. Therefore, let us go to him outside the camp. Oh, huh? Unclean. Why? And bear the reproach he endured. Can you drink of this cup I did? Now you see why Yahushua said, can you drink of this cup? You ain't gonna be able to drink this cup. For we have no lasting city. Man, we ain't got no lasting city. Everybody think they got some. Well, I got this Jerusalem right here. This Jerusalem right here. My place is Jerusalem right here. Man, we got no lasting city. But we seek the city that is to come. Right? And that's why you're doing all this 16 days. We're seeking something that's to come, not seeking something that's temporary. Right? Right? So that word for uncleanness is tuma. It means uncleanness, sexual. Right? Anything sexual. You can read Leviticus 18, you can find all of that. Right? You can read Leviticus, all through Leviticus. You read all of it. Right? A filthy mass, ethical or religious ritual. Right? Impurity, right? Filthiness, uncleanness, right? So get all the uncleanness out of your house, right? Out of your bodies, right? So that word for temple, they found all the uncleanness and they found in the temple. That word for temple is Hayikal. Hayikal. It means palace. You say, what? He said, why did I say palace? Because I'm trying to tell you, your temple, your sanctuary, your palace, your hall, right? Your temple, your palace, a large public building, a palace. They have the palace of Yahuwah as king, right? All this is a part of you. So who's your malak? Who's your king, right? Because the king had a son, and you are the people that's a part of his kingdom, at both male and female, malakim, and children. That's all it is. That's all it is. You're a part of his giant household, Yahuwah, Yahusha, male, female, children, and malakim. These are his household. The malakim are the servants. This is their household. We are the strangers, foreigners, the ones that wasn't in part of his. He allowing you to be a part of his house. That's all it is. But you gotta do this stuff. That's temple, right? It means palace, right? So the word for court, it says, the Khan went into the inner part of the house of Yahuwah and cleansed it, and they brought out the uncleanness, right, the tumah, that they found in the temple, the Heikal of Yahuwah, into the court, in the house of Yahuwah, the Ketzer. That word for court is Ketzer. Ketzer. Kaf, Sad, and Rosh. It means court, enclosure, court, settled abode, a yard. So they did what? All that they found in the temple of Yahuwah into the court of the house of Yahuwah, right? So they brought it out into the court, outside. That's in the outside of the yard, the fence, right? You got a fenced in place, but you got dead animals laying around. You don't want the dead animals on the ground, do you? So you got to make sure all the things around that nobody touches. You don't want nobody to touch it, do you? Then get it out of the ground, bury it, do something. Burn it, do something. Because you got to do something. You're not saying, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to let it just sit there. So you got a dead bird and you ain't going to do nothing. That's why they made a shovel. Right? So you got something that's laying around that's dead. And then somebody go around and they hit it and they touch it. And then guess what? They unclean. And it's your fault. Because you don't want to do nothing. You got something unclean on the inside of you, and you don't want to clean it out. You don't want to bury it. You want to get rid of it, and then you want somebody. You want to be around people. And you know what happens? You know what happens after that? Unclean. And it ain't the other person's fault. It's yours. It's just really that simple, right? So that book for Brook. So it says, and Louis took it and carried out to the brook Kidron. That word for brook is Nakal. Or Nakalah. Nakalah. For the feminine nature, right? Nakalah. It means torrent, valley, wadi, torrent, valley, right? So it's both male and female now. They carried it out. It says carried it out, and it means palm tree. Why? A stream. A winter torrent. A narrow valley. You be wondering why people be finding stuff buried underground. They be digging it up and then they find it. And you buried that stuff for a reason. That man called a mudslide and everything to bury this stuff. Why? He don't want y'all to find that stuff. You need to just focus on living on the surface of the earth. That's why. You want to dig down the Sheol and then you want to go find Sheol, and you're going to find something you shouldn't find. He buried that stuff. The brook, he put it right. Brook, flood, right? When things come and flood things out, what he trying to do? He's trying to get rid of stuff. When you have a flood come in your life, what do you think that's about? Yeah, that's about me maintaining everything I have and keeping everything I have, making sure I don't lose nothing. No, a flood means I'm coming to get your attention. You need to get rid of some stuff. You need to start over. You need to get rid of some things in your life. Matter of fact, you need to find out, man, these people follow me around, right? You need to find out what's going on, because that's the only reason he did it. Satan around, Shaitan around, you know that, right? Why do you think it's a flood? Because Satan around. He said, Satan was around? Yeah, Satan was around. That's why a flood came. That's why an earthquake came. Oh, I'm trying to get rid of stuff. That's the only reason these things happen. What's this whirlwind, storms, earthquakes, floods? What's that for? Get rid of stuff. Get rid of things. It ain't for you to keep stuff. They supposed to make you afraid. Man, I need to get my life. I need to get this stuff out of my life, right? That's what it's supposed to do. It's what, right? So that word for brook is nakal, right? So that word for Kidron is kudrum. Kudrun, it means dark. He was literally talking about a dark river. They threw that stuff in a dark river, a dark place where you'll never see it. Why do you think they did that? Because they don't want you to find it. Why do you think you ever seen a lake and the water be so dark you can't see to the bottom? the reason why that water dark is because there's a lot of stuff in that lake they don't want nobody to find. They ain't gonna put it in no clear crystal water. Like the river. You see the rivers and the streams. You see straight to the bottom like a spring, natural spring. You can't hide nothing in there. You throw something in there, everybody gonna see it. But if you find a dark water where nobody can see all the dark, and you throw it down in there, man, nobody never gonna dive into that dark, deep water. How you think police investigators be finding stuff? They be like, okay, it ain't in that water. That was a natural spring. Go find all the dark watered rivers and the dark watered places, and we have to comb all those to find the body, or to find what somebody hid or somebody committed a crime. Why didn't they do that? Because all that stuff is in there. You probably think they do it in a dark place, right? We don't want anybody to know that, right? That's some of my sin. I don't want nobody to know that. That stuff get out in public. So I got to throw that thing in the dark waters, right? And that's what they do. That's what these Kohanim, these priests, and these people do. They throw it in some dark, dusky place, right? That's what they mean, brook. That's where you put it at. Right, so this is second Baruch, pseudepigrapha. This is all a part of it, but you'll see what I'm saying. Right, this is second Baruch. Second Baruch, pseudepigrapha, volume 1, chapter 56, and verse 1. Second Baruch, 56 and 1. 56 and 1. But now, since you have asked the Most High Yahuwah to reveal to you the explanation of the vision which you have seen, I have sent to you to say to you that the Mighty One has let you know the course of times, namely those which have passed, and those which in his world will come to pass, from the beginning of his creation until the end. The times which are known by deceit and by truth. For as you saw a green cloud, which came up from the sea and went and covered the earth, this is the length of the world which the Mighty One has created when he took counsel in order to create the world. And it happened when the word had gone out from him that the length of the world was standing as something small, very tiny. Right? Because a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Right? Because a little leaven leavens, it was real tiny though. But that little small thing that you got can be very dangerous. And it says, and it was established in accordance with the abundance of the intelligence of him who let it go forth. So that's your own stuff. We talked about intelligence. The intelligence of one's own mind is what brings out these dark things out of your own body. And once the intelligence comes in, then you have the neshama, like the ruach, the neshama. When he created Adam, then you have to, with your own intelligence, remove it. It's nobody else's fault, but yours. And guess what? And as you first saw the black waters on the top of the cloud, which first came down upon the earth, this is the transgressions which Adam, the first man, committed. So you know your transgressions. Why do you think there's dark water here? These are your transgressions. For when he transgressed, ultimately death came into being, mourning was mentioned, affliction was prepared, illness was created. Why do you think he said the tumors? Right? You get illnesses. These are all, he said, if you keep my commandments, I'll remove all the diseases I put on Mizraim from you now. You see, Yahuwah will be like, I'll get all that stuff out of you. And guess what? This is why we get sick. People say, man, why we? Because of Adam. Because Adam was immortal. We would never be sick. We would never have any ailments or any pains. It's a bone, like he said, in pain you shall bring forth children. In pain you're going to till the ground. We won't have none of that. Right? Some days you feel good and some days you don't. You know why? Because it's because of Adam. Before, you never felt that stuff before. I never felt the heat of the sun. What is that? Oh my gosh. I've never had that pain before. Where did that come from? Right? You'll be wondering like where all this stuff come from. It's only because of sin. That was you inherited when you came into the world. And everybody got sin. So please don't be thinking, yeah, you know, I ain't got no sin. I'm immortal. 5,000 years, right? And the only way you're going to not see death unless Yahuwah take you from him. It's not too many people he took from him. So it ain't you. I'm on Yahoo. Tell your master all Yahoo here. You're a liar. Because Adam coming back, all Yahoo coming, you ain't know all Yahoo because he coming back here, man. I assure you, you came in the Ruach of all Yahoo. If you was in the Ruach of all Yahoo, you'd be living like your Ukanah. You wouldn't be living in luxury and self-indulgence. Boom, right? Tahor, right? You have purity in the flesh, right? So these are all a part of the lies that people tell themselves while you living in your little world you created. Right? But that's the whole point. That's why you got to put all this stuff aside. He said the least of them in the kingdom are gonna be greater than your Ukanah. Right? Right? You ain't gonna be greater than your Ukanah. He the least, right? So you think about that. Ukanah, man, y'all, a lot of people say that stuff. But it says, for when he transgressed, ultimately death came into being. Mourning was mentioned, affliction was prepared. Why do you think you cried? Illness was created, labor accomplished, pride began to come into existence. That's where pride come from. Why do you think Nebuchadnezzar was taken down? Why do you think Pharaoh, I married the Nile? Huh? I'm gonna hook you out of the ground. I'm gonna hook you out of the water like a fish, like a whale. Who are you talking to? What do you think Yahuwah was saying that to him? I made the Nile. Where do you think all this pride come from? What you said to me? I'm the Malak of Yasharal, huh? You can do whatever you want to do, but Yahuwah don't care. All these are, if you throw Adam out, Adam only sinned one time. Think about it. Adam only sinned once. And he cast him outside the camp. Yahushua sinned none. And he cast him out of the camp. And he suffered outside the camp. So what makes you think that you some better because you in some place and you think that somebody get cast out, you better than somebody else? Yahushua was outside the camp. Adam sinned once. And you sinned how many times? And you inside the camp. How many times you sinned? I'm better than him. Ha 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 ha. I got a drone flying over my head, right? That stuff don't mean nothing. I used to think that you'd be like, man, I gotta do all this, the drone, and do all this stuff, and do all this crazy stuff. You ain't gotta do that stuff. That stuff is fake. That's a lie. That's all just created for this little world that they created, with this little artificial world they created. It's all, you know what artificial is, that means it ain't real. Unless you make it real. You can use it for good or evil. It all depends on what you want to use it for. And you see how evil this world is? I don't trust not one of them. I already know this world rock. I say, man, look at you. That's the worst thing you want to give a human being right now. That's the worst thing you want to give a human being. Especially how people are today. No, absolutely no. That's like, man, you just might as well put the destructive button in your hand. Like, this second Baruch, keep going. And it says, labor was accomplished and pride began to come into existence. The realm of death began to ask to be renewed with blood, right? So that's what happens. The realm of death began to ask to be renewed with blood. Now you see why you're not redeemed with corruptible things, the silver and gold, with the precious blood of Yahushua Mashiach. That's why when he offered himself, they pierced him in the side, out came blood and water in Yuchanan chapter 18. And guess what? You know what happens at 19? You know what happens after that? You get renewed with the blood. You get renewed. Death is like, man, I need to be renewed with the blood. Why do you think Adam was made from the Adama? It was red soil. He was formed and shaped from it. Why do you think Yaakov gave him red lentils? Man, I need to be renewed with the blood, man. I ain't got no eternal life in me. All this is a part of it. You can't just say that. But guess what it says? Not with people who have the intellect, because this the realm where Satan be at. When you don't know this stuff, Satan be playing with your yard. He playing with your yard, playing with your cough, right? He be playing with you. Playing with your mind. And guess what it says? Illness was created, labor accomplished, pride began to come into existence, and the realm of death began to ask to be renewed with blood. The conception of children came about, because that's what happens when a woman goes through her menstrual. She get renewed with blood. That's the blood of her virginity. And guess what? The conception of the child came about. The passion of the parents was produced. Right? That's where it comes from. That's why we talk about cleansing the uncleanness out of your house. Right? The tumor. Why? Because that's the sexual desire. Because that's the only way you're going to understand Yahuwah himself. But guess what happens? If you keep my commandments, I remove all the diseases from you. Loftiness of men, get what it says. The conception of child came about. The passions of parents was produced. The loftiness of men was humiliated. You get what I said, right? You get humiliated. Because you lift it up in your heart and your mind, because you got all that pride. You know what happens? You get humiliated. You get humiliated. But when Yahushua was humiliated, he ain't say a word. He act like he was a dumb animal. He don't know anything. You just stupid. You stupid, dumb idiot. You know how people say. But naturality, he just say quiet. I ain't as stupid as you thought. Man, you deceived me. Nah, I ain't deceived you. Yahuwah deceived you. Yahuwah sent that lying spirit in your heart. But guess what it says? We're going to get to the part where I want. And it says, and to renew by the blood, the conception of the children came about, the passion of the parents was produced, the loftiness of men was humiliated, and goodness vanished. What could therefore have been blacker and darker than these? Now you see what them dark waters for. That's that dark water, that brook Kidron. that brook Kudrum. Right? You gotta get that, you gotta see that brook Kudrum. Then the all Kudrum. The Hala Kudrum. He said, what is more darker than this? Look at all that stuff that's in there. So what's more darker than that? You don't think those things are dark. You think that's light. That's light. That's ore. You see that? You see all these things I created, these children I created? That. You may think it's light, that child you created. You think it's a righteous seed, don't you? I know you do. When that child get older, you'll find out that, man, this child evil just like me. You're going to see the raw. You're going to be like, man, I need to start swinging the bar. Yep. You're going to find out. Because sin was in the world. Once sin got in the world, everybody got sin. So please don't be thinking, my child is such a great child. It's so good. You know how people say? They say this stuff. They be arrogant against you who is the bar. Like, man, you understand you already evil. He's so great. He's so wonderful. Oh my gosh, he's never done anything wrong. So you telling me, he say mischief is in the heart of a child. And the rod of correction, drive it from it, man. You have no idea. You know what people say. People say this stuff. Man, you arrogant. You speaking great words against Yahuwah's greatness. And trying to say a human being on earth is more righteous than him. You are speaking. And you know what Yahuwah gonna do to your child? He gonna make him just as wicked as he want. He gonna deceive him just so you will never say that again out of your mouth. So it's just better we are all born into sin. But Yahushua gave us calm. Don't ever say that. Don't do it. My child is so better than you. Don't do it. Don't do it. I promise you. That's what you're gonna set your child up. What could therefore be more blacker and darker than these? This is the beginning of the black waters which you have seen. See, now you see why them black waters there, that dark Kidron. That brook Kidron, that Nahala Kudron, you need that. You need to throw that stuff in there. Throw that stuff in there. Why? Because that's important. And it says, therefore it says, the goodness vanished. What could therefore have been blacker and darker than these? This is the beginning of the black waters which you have seen. And from thence black waters again, black were born, and very darkness originated. For he who has a danger to himself was also a danger to the Malachim. Now you see why you gotta get rid of your stuff, out of your house, out of the tent, out of your house. You're a danger to everybody. I know it sounds fun. People say, man, you're dangerous. You're dangerous to the Malachim. You know what you're going to do when you come to the dark water, the Malachim, see that? You might cause one of the fall, you know, like the falling, like some Jaza, Azazel, Azbaal, Amaros. You might cause some of the Malachim to fall, like Kaf, when Barnabas was actually with him. And he caused him to mess up. When he was eating with the Goyim, right? All these things that he was doing. Right? You might call, people have no idea. You're a danger to the Malachim, man, with that behaviors you got. Now you see why. You could be a danger to your whole family. You could be a danger to your Isha, your Ish. You could be a danger to your mother, your father. You could be a danger to your whole lineage if you don't get rid of that mindset and those things. He says, for he who was a danger to himself, you a danger to yourself, was also a danger to the Malachim. Because we all like Malachim. Or you say you be transformed, because you know in the Malkuth there's not going to be marrying or giving in marriage. But everybody going to be like the Malachim, right? So that what do you think this is? Why do you think he tell you to abstain from all of these things? Because you're like a Malachim right now. He puts you in a mindset of a Malachim. You got to put away all these things, even your sexual desires. And if you don't, and you're around people who have, you're a danger to everybody around, male and female. Because you don't want to do it. Oh, you don't want to do it? Okay. Then you're a danger not only to yourself, but to everybody around you. Because everybody else have crucified the flesh and brought it to an open shame and humiliation. That's what this is, a humiliation. What do you think, 16? That's a humiliate. You humiliating me. You saying I can't do what I usually normally do. You're humiliating me. Exactly. That's what Yahusha had to go through. It's humiliating. So you saying that don't matter right now? He's saying nope. And guess what it says? We're going to finish this. For they possess freedom in that time in which they were created. So that's how you get freedom. Kohopshi. Today is the day of freedom. It's the day of freedom. Wow, you got to set this stuff aside. For they possess freedom in that time from which they were created. And some of them came down and mingled themselves with women. Uh-oh. Now you see why. It is important. Now you see why he tell you to put away all your sexual desire. And everybody got to do it. If you don't, I told you, go ahead and do it around this. Go ahead and do it if you want to right now. You're gonna create some other being, and it ain't gonna be something pleasant. You're gonna create a Nephilim. You're gonna create a Nephilim. That's what you're going to create. You're going to create a Nephilim. And you know what happens when you do that? You know what happened when they died? They became evil spirits in the earth. And this is true. And people say, nah, that's not true. They go a lot deeper than this, but he's just scratching the surface. I'm just touching it, right? Just touching it. Just touching it. And it says, and some of them came down and mingled themselves with women, and at that time they who acted like this were tormented in chains. Now you see why. Now you see why. Satan gonna be casting lake of fire. And all the other ones, they already reserved. You say, well, I got them reserved. Hanuk reserved it. You should thank Yahuwah for Hanuk. Because if they weren't reserved right now, I assure you, you would not be living the way you're living right now. Matter of fact, some of you might even be. This is the whole point of this whole thing. This is how serious this stuff. Why do you think he's telling us to do it for his first 16 days? You're like, yeah, that don't mean nothing. Who cares? I don't care. Who cares, okay? Better make sure you do it from this day on forward. Every single time it come around, too. Because Yahushua might come back. No man on the day, no hour. But this is the truth, whether you like it or not, right? But it says, and at the same time, they came down and mingled themselves with women, and at that time, they who acted like they were in torment and in chains. But the rest of the multitude of Malachim, who had no number restrained themselves. Uh-oh. Now you see why. You got to restrain yourself. Please restrain yourself. I promise you, it'll work out for your benefit. Restrain yourself. Everybody. And those living on earth perished together through the water of the flood. How many souls were saved? Right, so this is the book of Peter. This is the book of Peter. Cough. Right, people think this is a joke. It's not. People think this is a joke. It's not a joke. Right, so what is it, 2 Peter? 1 Peter chapter 1. I said 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 18. 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 18. 1 Peter, Aleph Kaf, chapter 3 verse 18. For Mashiach also suffered once for sin. So he, just once. He did that yesterday. You know how it is. Right? We just remembering what he did. But these are reenactment. The righteous and the unrighteous, that he might bring to Elohim, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Ruach. That's why we put to death our flesh for this 16 days. So you can be alive by the Ruach. You got to do it to the third day. This is a point in all of this. In which he went and proclaimed to the spirits, the Ruach in prison. You know, the ones that have been cast down. You know, the ones that ain't never know about it. You know, the ones that were ignorant, didn't really know it. The spirits, because they formerly did not obey when Elohim's patience waited in the days of Noah. Oh, you mean before the flood? The same flood we just read about. Then all they died. They all died in the flood, didn't they? So Yahushua went to go talk to them people. Can you do that? I want to see you try. Because there's only one person who can open the seals and go all the way down to the center of the earth and go do that. You know why he did that? Just to show you where I am. Show you how I do things. To show you what has taken place under the earth, on the surface of the earth, and in the Rakia. I'm just letting you all know what's going on and what just took place and how everything transpired and what you got to do to get back, right? And guess what? In Nuach, while the ark was being prepared, because they formerly did not obey. So everybody didn't obey. You be like, oh, they didn't obey. Who? Everybody obeyed, right? No, they didn't obey. When Elohim's patience waited in the days of Nuach while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. How many days you sanctify yourself? The second time? Remember they did 8 days until they got to the Eulun, and then they did what? Did another 8 days till they get to the 16th day. And then they finished. 8 days. So you want to be a part of the 8? So you think about this. Think about it. Right, this is a part of this whole thing. Brought safely through the water, immersion which corresponds to this. Yeah? Huh? You ever washed yourself in water? You be like, man, that thing, you see all that dirt in the water? Why do you think immersion is? All that filth you got on yourself need to go back in the water. Right? He said, why? There ain't no other river. And when he came to in 2 Kings, chapter 5, right? What is it, 2 Kings chapter 5? When he came to Yahoo, that man asked, he told him, he said, go wash yourself in the Jordan 7 times. He's like, there ain't no other river? Other than that river? That river is filthy. You know why? You need to go wash yourself in that dirty water. Because that's what you is. You dirty. You black water. It says, we're brought safely through the water. Immersion, which corresponds to this, now saves you, not as a removal of the dirt from the body, but as an appeal to Elohim for a good conscience. We need an appeal. Because you ever filed an appeal? Somebody got a sentence against you, or a bill against you, or some type of fine, and you'd be like, you could submit an appeal if you want. What do you mean an appeal? So you've been guilty of first-degree adultery, for first-degree fornication, first-degree slander, for slander to shed blood, and then you use 10 people to kill them with 3 other spears. Matter of fact, you coerced another person to slay a man who would not turn back. Matter of fact, you spied out somebody to find out where he was, and then you sent back to find him, and you got other people to get the sword and go kill him. Or you even conspired with a woman, Isha, and you got this man's land that was next to yours. And then you convinced all Yasharal to kill him and stone him with false witnesses. You killed. Matter of fact, there was a man that was in a garden who did nobody wrong, and you all came by night with swords and clubs and all types of weapons, and you came and got him, and he did nothing to you. And then you used false witnesses and you beat him up, and then you hung him and you killed an innocent man. And it's only the first day since it happened. Well, the second day. Well, the first day since it happened. So, you have an appeal. You can either jump in the water now. I can come, get immersed, jump in the water now, in a rush manner, and make an appeal. Or, if Yahusha come back, in about 3-4 days, maybe 3 days from now, and he come back, and you ain't even in the operation of doing it, so Barak is he who finds so doing, then guess what? You will never be able to submit an appeal. And when you go to court, the judgment, you have no appeal on file, and you have nothing, no blood to cover you. Something we just read. Right? No blood, and then guess what happens? And that's how it works. So it says 8 persons were brought safely through water, immersion, which corresponds to this, now saves you as not as removal of the dirt from your body. You know how they say all your stuff is just removed. You know how they say when you get immersed, you should be a new person. No, you still got work to do after that. As an appeal, you just appeal to Elohim for a good conscience. That's it. Through the resurrection of Yahushua Mashiach. To do what? Who has gone into Shamayim, Yahushua done left, and is at the right hand of Elohim. You know his Yod, because you be thinking his Yod, his name start with a Yod. And he's at the right hand of his father's Yod. And guess what? With the Malakim, you're a danger to the Malakim. Yahuwah don't want you there. Say what? Man, you're a danger to the, you're going to make the rest of the Malakim. You're going to make Mikal, Garba-al, Rafa-al, Mikal, right? You're going to make all the other ones fall. No, you can't come here. With the Malakim and authorities and powers having subjected to him. Everybody's subjected to him. And this is not a game. But it says right here, going back to 2nd Baruch 56 and 2, but the rest of the multitude of Malakim who had no number restrained themselves. Restrain yourself. And those living on earth perished together through the waters of the flood. Those are the first black waters. So please don't be thinking these black waters going anywhere. Amazingly, what is this? This is the first black waters. What feast is this? We had Pesach. That was the first feast. Right? Now we got this. This is the second. Right? But then you start to look at this, and people say, "What? This is the truth, right? This is the truth." Right, so this is going to chapter 57, 2nd Baruch 57, same thing. 2nd Baruch 57. And after these you saw the bright waters. This is the fountain of Abraham and his generation. Well, Abraham's family, they had a covenant in their flesh. They had to be circumcised in their flesh. And guess what? And the coming of his son. Because remember, circumcision had to be here before his son came into the world. And guess what he said? And the son of his son. Who was the son of Yitzhak, of his son? Yaakov, Yasharal. And guess what? And those who are like them, those who have joined themselves to them, who have gotten circumcised, just like Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and his sons. And guess what? For at that time, the unwritten law was in force. And it says in force among them. And the works of the commandments were accomplished at that time. And the belief in the coming judgment was brought about. And the hope of the world which will be renewed was rebuilt at that time. And the promise of life that will come later was planted. Those are the bright waters which you have seen. You know, are. In the last days, they shall come to the house. In the last days, the mountain of Yahuwah shall be established in the highest mountains and exalted above the hills, and all nations shall nahar to it. You know, because they want to be just like you, though. They want to be a part of this whole thing. This is the bright waters you saw. And these are all a part of it. Because that's the second bright waters. But this is all a part of it. We're not going to go into that. But I'm going to stay out of there. But we'll probably go back. But it says, so that's a brook Kidron. That's the dark waters, right? And that word for it said, then 8 days they consecrated themselves. That word for 8 is shamunah. Shamunah. It means plumpness. For 8 days, right? Plumpness. 8 days. Right? All this is all part of it. It means, it says, above the perfect 7. He said, what 8 days got to do anything? 8 days got to do a lot of things. Because the lamb of Yahuwah equals to 8. Sa. The bar equals to 8. Right? All that equals to 8. The gan equals to 8. Yehudi equals to 8. The bar, Yahuwah, equals to 8. Circumcision equals to 8. And a matter of fact, this equals to 8. And he only say 8 souls during Nuah. Though, you know, the one, you got to restrain yourself. But, you know, they had somebody on the ship that didn't restrain themselves when they got off the ship. Ham. That Ham messed everything up. He messed it all up. I know people, yeah, he messed it up. He got off the boat and he did some stuff. And he brought that same stuff that they had and he brought it. And he created a whole kingdom out of it. But that's the whole point of it. This is 1 Corinthians 6:19. Or do you not know that your body is the Haykal of the Qahalath Ruach? Because it's the Haykal, your palace. Within you, whom you have from Yahuwah, you are not your own. You were bought with a price. And he said, Yahushua bought you yesterday. He bought you. I bought you. You know why he said you bought with a price? Because who had to be circumcised? Children of Yasharal. And then who else had to be circumcised in Abraham's house? All those who were bought with money. And the servants that they were purchased. They had to be circumcised too. So kabod Yahuwah in your body. So you think you kabod Yahuwah in your body? And you done did opposite what Yahuwah said in the Torah? No. Absolutely not. You were bought with a price. Which means what? You've joined yourself to Yasharal. Right? So that means you bought with money into Yasharal. Which means you have requirements that you have to make. And all those sojourners and strangers who dwell among you, because that's what Corinth is, a stranger. Foreigners. Not the people. You know how to say it? Not the people. Bought with a price. He came to save Yasharal from their sins, and he bought you with a price so you can be purchased into his body as well. That's what it means. But the body has always been a temple to the Yasharal. That's why we cleanse ourselves in the first 16 days. That's always been our practice. To cleanse we just forgot. That's all it is. Because, the priests held the knowledge from us and they didn't want us to know because they didn't want us to be cleansed. And they want to feel like they're more righteous than you and more cleansed than you. They want to feel like they're better than you, but then they don't want to tell you these things, so you don't cleanse yourself. And then you know what they do? Then they, I'm more righteous than you, I'm more clean than you. But then how would you tell to get the knowledge? But see, that's the thing. Because it's called selfishness. You are greedy dogs. You feed yourself. Right? You're going to read that. You say, what? These are all a part of it, right? And people think this is not an attack, right? This is just so you can know, right? It's all the same thing. Right, this is the book of Ezekiel. Actually, yeah, Ezekiel 34. Yakaziel chapter 34 and verse 1. Yakaziel chapter 34 and verse 1. Yakaziel chapter 34 verse 1. The word of Yahuwah came to me, son of Adam, Naba against the shepherds of Yasharal. Prophesy and say to them, even the shepherds, thus says Yahuwah Elohim. You know, that's feminine nature. That's the last letter. Shepherds of Yasharal who have been feeding yourselves. You should not the shepherds feed the sheep? You eat the fat and you clothe yourselves with wool. You slaughter the fat ones. You know, the plump. We just read that. You slaughter the fat ones. You clothe yourselves like wool. You slaughter the fat ones, but you do not feed the sheep. The weak you have not strengthened. How you strengthen them? Bottom of the bar. The sick you have not healed. The injured you have not bound up. The strayed you have not brought back. You know, they only bring back the prominent ones, the ones with the money. Right? The ones. The lost you have not sought, and with force and harshness. When we talked about harshness, like Mashar, when he started getting harsh, and then Yahuwah started punishing him, and he said, don't even answer me no more about this whole thing. You hit the rock. Don't you even, your prayers hindered. He's like, don't you even talk to me about it. I want to see it. Don't you even ask me no more about this matter. And people think this is a game. It's not a joke. With harshness, you have ruled them. That's why you got to submit to all humility, all gentleness, and all courtesy. Because if you don't, so they were scattered. Oh man, that's how it happened. Because there was no shepherd, even though you were there, even though you were teaching, even though you had all that information, it still was like they had no shepherd. It was still like you wasn't even there. It's like you're not a shepherd, even though you're there. Even though the people sitting there and they're looking at you, and you doing it, ruling harshly, understand, you still ain't no shepherd. It's like they don't even have one. He's like, I ain't got no shepherd. I thought that is a shepherd. No, they ain't no shepherd. That's why Yahusha said, he said, I'm the good shepherd. He said, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. You know what happens when you start doing that? They're going to go outside the camp and go suffer the reproach he did. They're going to go outside the camp. People are like, why did he left? Because they went outside the camp to suffer the reproach of Yahushua Mashiach because they realized you wasn't a good shepherd. It has nothing to do with anything else. You know how people say, people want to blame other people. It's just the fact that you weren't a good shepherd. So if you was a good shepherd, then guess what? He said, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. You can't switch it on people because once you do these things, the bar is already against you. It says, the weak you have, it says, so they were scattered because there was no shepherd and they became food for the wild beasts. You know what happens when they become food for the wild beasts? What happens when they become food for the wild beasts? My sheep were scattered and they wandered over all the mountains and over every high hill. My sheep were scattered over all the face of the earth. Now you see why Yahuwah said, my treasured possessions on the face of the earth, my panim. And that's why we clean our panim. And guess what? And none searched or seeked for them. These are all part of it. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of Yahuwah, as I live, declares Yahuwah Elohim. Surely, because my sheep have become a prey, and my sheep have become food for all the wild beasts, since there was no shepherd, and because my shepherd has not searched for my sheep, but the shepherds have fed themselves, and have not fed my sheep. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my sheep at their hand, and put a stop to their feeding the sheep. And these are a part of it. No longer shall the shepherds feed themselves. Nope. And I will rescue my sheep out of their mouth, and they may not be food for them. So that's the whole point. And this is the whole point. Verse 1 Corinthians 3:17 through 21. If anyone destroys the temple of Yahuwah, Yahuwah will destroy him. So that's why he said, I'm going to get my sheep. You destroy my God. You destroy my temple. So you destroy the other people's temple too. And they got eaten by a lion and a bear. But guess what? For Yahuwah's temple is Qahalath. Now you see why we cleanse the filth out of our temple. That's why we got to do it for 16 days. To get redeemed from the mouth of the lion. To get redeemed from the mouth of the bear. He came to get you out of his mouth. That's why we do it. I'm getting you out of the lion and the Satan's mouth. So now you cleanse your temple, your haikal within your body, to get yourself away from Satan. This is how he's going to rescue you through the bar, because the people didn't do their job. So therefore, he's rescuing you from Satan's mouth right now. And you are that temple. You are that haikal. Let no one deceive himself. You will deceive yourself, because Satan got a hold of you right now. If anyone among you thinks he is wise in this age, let him become a fool that he may be wise, right? You got to become a fool. I don't know. Once you get to that point, then Yahuwah's like, you need me. For the wisdom of this world is folly with Yahuwah, for it is written, he catches the wise in their craftiness, you Nukash. And again, Yahuwah knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are worthless. So let no one boast in men. Right? That means boasting is flattery, words of praise, and all these things. Because Yahuwah don't like that. My child is so wonderful. My child is better than your child. My son is better than yours. And all these things, you boasting in men and children and women, right? Blocked are the breasts that bore you and the woman that you sucked breast from. No, Barak is he who hit at the bar and do it. All these boaster men. Nobody want to hear that. That stuff is fake. Right? That's the most fakest statements you could ever hear in your life. Especially when you're dealing with Yahuwah himself. And this is true. This is Shemuth Exodus chapter 12 and 14 through 18. This day shall be for you a memorial day. That's remembering. So you got to remind yourself. We remembering it. He said, why you be going through this stuff every year? Because you got to remember it. Because you forget it. And, man, you're going to turn into Judas. You're going to turn into Asa. You're going to turn into Athaliah. You're going to turn into Kurak. You're going to turn into Pharaoh. You're going to turn into Nebuchadnezzar. You're going to turn into many examples. Esau. You're going to turn into Cain. You're going to turn into them people. You're going to turn into them. You're going to be like Jared. You're going to turn into all these people. You're going to mess up. You're going to be like, man. You're going to turn into Dawid. You're going to get about 10, 15 other people. You're going to turn to Jared, Yerad. You're going to turn into these people. You don't want to do that. You're going to turn into Shalom when he want all them women. Right? And you know what you're supposed to do during this time. You're going to mess up. Right, this is not a game. Hey, it's not a joke. You're going to be like, man, you're a danger to yourself and everybody. Why do you think Yahuwah got rid of Shalom? Why do you think he had to do that? He said, I've been saying it twice. I've been talking to you, and you ain't did nothing. So therefore, cursed be you, right? That's what happened to him. That's happened to David Tawid too. Cursed be you, because you weren't out going to war in the first month. Cursed be you in the springtime. Right? Wasn't David did that? Around this time, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't speaking to the bar. He wasn't out here doing that. So therefore, cursed be you. Now you're looking at another man's wife. Right? It's true though. Idleness, right? What did he say, idle? You know what Adam was? We just read that in the second Baruch. Adam was an idol. And you know what happened with an idol? Sin. Sin. And that's true. Shalom, Exodus chapter 12, verse 14. This day shall be for you a memorial, remembrance, that you shall keep the Chag of Yahuwah throughout your generations as a statute forever. You shall keep the Chagah, keep the feast, or the Chagah. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. The first day you shall remove the leavened saor out of your houses. That's what day is, but it's still a part of the 16-day count. This is the 14th day. This is the first day, right? But then it's a part of the 16 days. The first day, you need to still be thinking about all the leaven you need to get out of your house. And it says, for if anyone eats what is kamatz, leavened, from the first day to the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Yasharal. These are all the part. Yahuwah cuts communication from you. You don't want that. That's why we cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and ruach. On the first day, you shall have a kudash mikra. And on the 7th day, kudash assembly, mikra. No work shall be done on those days, but everyone needs to eat. Right? You need to eat. I assure you, you won't eat. If you ain't hungry, if you wasn't hungry, if you did the first 16 days, I assure you, you hungry for the 7 days. If you get what I just said. Eat like, I promise you. That alone may be prepared for you, right? By you, right? You gotta do something, right? And you shall observe the feast, Kagag, unleavened bread, for this very day. I brought your host out of the land of Mizraim. That's how he brought us out. By Yahushua's blood and keeping Pesach, and by resting the Shabbat day on the 15th day when they came in, when he went into the grave. When they put him down before the sun went down, and they brought the spices and they buried him in the grave. Because the 3rd day he gonna rise. And people say, when the 3rd day start? At evening. You know what they say? The 3rd day starts when the sun rises. Right? It starts in darkness. It starts in dark waters. Now, you know, dark waters, you gotta go in the darkness in order to get light. That's when he arose, out of the darkness, right? And guess what? For this very day, I brought your host out of the land of Mizraim. Therefore, you shall observe this day throughout your generations as a statute forever. It's the first day. If it's the first day, remember it started at evening, but it's showing you how he rose. It's very simple. You know, everybody try to create this complicated. It's really simple. He rose the 3rd day of Chag Matsah. And everything that we do is all a part of it. And in the first month of the 14th day of the month, at evening, right, Aydah, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month. See, this is why them first 21 days, but y'all better pay attention. I mean, especially when you get to the 24th day, 25th day. You don't want to be fighting nobody. Because you ain't going to be fighting against a human being. Because everybody malakim if you do it the right way. And if you consecrate yourself, and you're going to be fighting against somebody else malakim. And I assure you, you don't want to do that. And that's how deep this thing goes. Or you're going to be a malaki of Satan. It's either going to be one or two things. Satan, Shaitan, or Mikal, right? So which one you want to be? I'm telling you, I know it sounds crazy. That's what this is about. This ain't about what you think. I know I'm touching it, and everybody who understands is starting to see it. If you can see it, then you understand. Or Ozen, or Oz. Put on your ChayParach and your beautiful garments. Because this is serious, right? The 14th day of the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread for the 21st day of the month at evening, Abyb. For 7 days, no leaven is found in your houses, but you don't need to have none of that junk. If anyone eats what is leavened or kamas, that person will be cut off from the congregation Aydah of Yasharal. Whether he's a sojourner or a native of the land. What do you mean? Those people that are bought with a price. Oh man, you bought with a price. Who was bought with a price? Sojourner, people who willingly said, I want to come, and those who bought with a price. Those are natives are the people who were circumcised. The sojourner are the people who come in who want to get circumcised. Is that not true? You shall eat nothing leavened in all your dwellings, or mashab. You shall eat unleavened bread. Right? And this is true. Because unleavened bread is something that people have no idea. But let's go. And on the first day, that word for assembly is mikra. It means convocation, convoking, reading, calling together sacred assembly. Convoking, reading, rehearsal. Rehearsal of what? I'm rehearsing all these things to you again. Because if you forget, this is going to be you, right? It's going to be you. You're going to be Malachia Shaitan. You're going to transform, like we talked about, you're going to transform yourself into a Malachi of Satan if you don't do it. And you're going to turn into Shaitan. I promise you. Right? So that word for a feast is kagab. Statute forever, it shall be a feast. That means to hold feast, to hold it to dance, to move in a circle, to celebrate, to reel to and fro. That's new or new. Like we talked about waving the sheaf. If you go back and looking at those things, new or new, waving the sheaf, that's your hands, your branches. But then we talk about reeling to and fro. Those things are a part of the vibration that you give off. Right? We talked about that already, but at the same time, it's a remembrance, right? Make a pilgrimage. What is a pilgrimage? To celebrate a feast. What do you mean a pilgrimage? A pilgrimage is a purposeful, sacred journey to a Qahalath site, meant to foster spiritual renewal, renewed in the ruach of your mind. Why? A pilgrimage. We don't have a continual city. That's why you don't have one. Now you see why you don't got a continual city. You got a moving procession. That's how the cycles move. They move in a sphere, the circles. I liken my judgment to a circle. What goes around comes around again. You know how they say? What goes around comes around again. And you want to be at peace in the middle of that circle too. We almost finished. And transformation. It serves as a physical or active devotion, allowing believers to step away from their daily life to seek repentance, healing, or answers to life's questions. Often a mirror of the inner journey. Right? Inner journey. That's what this is. Right? So that word, it says leaven. Move all the leaven out of your house. Sawor. That means leaven, right? That's barm, least cake, swelling, fermentation, leaven. This is physical. Right? We're talking about something physical right now. Right? Physical bread. Right? Yeah, you can't get no dandy bread, no bread that rise with the leaven in it. No cakes, right? No leaven in it. You know, all that sweet stuff you like to eat. No donuts, right? None of that stuff. All that sugar on it, right? All that stuff is out of your system, right? So you transforming you into something else, right? We're transforming ourselves into another type of being. If you give it a sense. So all this is a part of that transformation into that being, those beings. And by abstaining from things, transforms you into those beings. Or you will transform yourself into another being. And then you will be like Abyb chapter 1. Where you come from? And that's the whole point of this one. It's all a part of it. So however, houses is ba'ith. He said no leaven should be found in your houses. That's ba'ith, right? You're not talking about Aydah. We're talking about something that's inside, right? So you got the outward man, physical, outer house. Then you have the Aydah, the inner house, inside of you. So this is the outer. We're talking about flesh right now, right? This ain't got Aydah inside, right? You're talking about your house, your physical house, right? Your house, your dwelling. Your abode, your family descendants, right? We're talking about an outer house, and we have how you call on the inner side of ourselves. A house, a court, a porch. It means a daughter, right? Family, right? We're talking about cleansing. These are all things you need to do in your own household. Household affairs. Mind your own business. Mind your own business, right? That's it. Your own household affairs. Everybody be focusing on other people's household affairs. Focus on your own stuff. It's not your business, right? It's your own business. I gotta be on my own, the business of Yahuwah. This is the business of Yahuwah. Prison, right? That's where Yahuwah should come get you out of prison. Tablet, right? He's understand this stuff, right? Family, guard, family, temple, house, right? Inwards, right? Now of course, it goes into the body, but remember, there are all types of things inside of your inner house, not your physical inner house. Even the house you dwell inside, your house, your natural house, your tent where you may live, your physical body, right? Things of that sort. We're not talking about a spiritual nature. We're talking about this whole natural thing that you got to do, right? Right. So this is the Exodus, Shemuth 19, chapter 1. Well, chapter 19, verse 1. On the third day, on the third new Kudash, right, after the people of Yasharal had gone to the land of Mizraim, on that day they came to the Midbar of Sinai, right? And guess what it says? Going to verse 9. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, behold, I am coming to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may believe you forever. Why? Because Yahuwah come with clouds, and every eye gonna see him. And all those who pierced him, you gonna wail when he come back here in that cloud, that right? And when Moshe told the words to the people of Yahuwah, Yahuwah said to Moshe, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. What today is? One day. It's first day. Today and tomorrow, what tomorrow is? We got 2 more days, right? Before what? And let them wash their garments and get ready for the third day. That's what we doing. You better get ready for the third day. This is not a game. I know she's like, yeah, I don't need to get ready for the third day. Okay. I'll be seeing you on the third day. Right? You see on the third day. The third day coming. For on the third day, Yahuwah will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people, right? You don't know, nobody know the day, no hour. What did he say? No man know the day, no hour. He said, every eye gonna see him, and all that piercing. So watch these demons, right? Believe me, the demons Shadim want to do something. They want to try and mess your head up. Remember the deception of the old serpent. Remember I told you, don't believe everything you see now. Right? I'm telling you now. You better get ready for the third day. These people ain't playing. You can believe what you want to believe. I already know how this stuff works. These people this is the first year where I ever seen the moon. Remember, the sun and the moon face to face with the moon calendar and the Shemash calendar. Now you think about that. How many times that happened? That's a precise moment. Like nothing, I assure you, you might want to get ready against the third day. Like people say, why do you think all this? You think this is a game or something? Like this is not a joke. You're gonna transform. I'm telling you, either you're gonna transform yourself into a monarchy of Satan or a monarchy of this is not a game. For the third day, Yahuwah will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all these peoples, and you shall set limits for the people all around, saying, take care not to go up into the mountain or nigah the edge of it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it, nigga. That's what it means, nigah. And guess what you got to do? You see that word right there, nigah? It got an iron on it at the end. It means you got to see that thing too, nigah. That's what the naga means. It means naga, right? But naga, right? Naga, because don't touch it. Because what Yahushua said with a woman, we talked about this last time. When he came out of tune, and he was getting ready to touch him. He said, "Touch me now, don't you touch me, nigga." Niga, right? Don't touch me, because he had to keep himself from. He was a malakim, man. You can't touch the man, malakim, man. What's wrong with you? The edge of it. Don't even touch the edge. Whosoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. Right? So now you see why it's not a game. No hand shall niga or touch him. Naga, and you know what they call, yeah, I'm not even gonna talk about that, I'll talk about that. What they call Naga, but they call other things Naga too now. But this other thing. It says, but he shall be stoned or shot. Say what? We ain't talking about literally shooting nobody, man. It's not. Yahuwah got his own little thing he did, right? But that's not. Whether beast or man, now you see why, right? He shall not live when he says, Yibab, or he say, Yibab sounds a long blast, or the Turah, right? But it says right here, they shall come up, Yibal, right? Shall sound a long blast, right? And it says, they shall come up to the mountain. So Moshe went up from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their garments. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day. Do not go near women. Now you see why you got to abstain from all things. He said all these things are dark waters, man. You got to get rid of this stuff. It's just really about being sacred, like being like a sacred type practice. That sacred practice creates consecration. It really puts you in that situation where you really have to put things aside, right? And that's all this is about. This is Aleph Shamuel. We almost there. 21, 1 through 9. Then Dawid came to Nob to Abimelech the priest. And Abimelech came to meet Dawid, trembling, and said to him, why are you alone? And no one is with you. What's going on, man? And Dawid said to Abimelech the priest, the king has charged me with a matter and said to me, let no one know anything about the matter which I send you. Right? So everybody don't need to know what Yahushua should be telling you to do. Like, man, Yahushua told me that, man, you better tell me what he said to do with you, right? He said, you need to be quiet, right? And he says, and with which I have charged you. He said, don't even tell nobody. I have made an appointment with the young men for such and such a place. Now then, what do you have on hand? He said, I made an appointment, man. What do you think this is? What you think? He trying to keep that such and such place, right? I ain't trying to tell. He's like, such and such place. What you talking about? Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever is here. Because you need that thing. It's Chag Matsah, man. Give me some bread. And the priest answered Dawid, I have no common bread on hand, but the Qahalath bread. Now you see why you got to cleanse yourself for the first 16 days. You got to set apart yourself for what? The Qahalath bread. The bread that's coming on the 3rd day. Because if you don't, you're going to have errors and doubts. You ain't going to believe. And what happens after that? You're going to turn into a Malachi of Satan. And you know what happens to that? You're going to become anti-Mashiach. You be like, anti-Mashiach. You might as well just say that. You might as well just say anti-Mashiach. When you walk out the door, when you go walk by the way, you lie down and you rise up. Be like anti-Mashiach. You might as well say you the venom, right? You might as well just say you like that. You might as well, because that's the whole point. Because it's all about Qahalath bread. If the young men have kept themselves from women, and the women have to keep themselves from men, it's the same thing. Because you have to know. And Dawid answered the Kahan, truly women have been kept from us, as always when I go on an expedition. he like, and what are we on? A pilgrimage. Remember we just read a pilgrimage? We have no continuing city. We're on a pilgrimage. And you know what that expedition is supposed to do? Bring you to the city. Because we seek a city that's to come. And that pilgrimage, that expedition, is what's supposed to cleanse us. Because what goes around comes around. Because remember, these are pilgrimages. You see? The vessels of the young men are Qahalath, even when it is an ordinary journey. He's like, man, even on the 49-day count, going to the 50th day, man, we still Qahalath. You see? how much more today will their vessels be Qahalath, man? But we so Qahalath, boy, you couldn't tell us we can't eat from the Qahalath bread. So the priest gave him the Qahalath bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of presence. Now you see why Yahushua say every eye gonna see him and all that piercing gonna wail, because he gonna come back. You gonna be eating the bread of his presence. But everybody not gonna be able to eat it. That's why people don't believe it. You say, why people don't believe it? What does hinder you inside of you that you do not obey, or you even want to acknowledge Yahushua Mashiach? Because there's something on the inside of you that's preventing you from doing it. And it says, but the bread of presence, which is removed from before Yahuwah to be replaced by hot bread on the day, is taken away. Man, you need to make some hot bread every single day of a Chag Matsah, right? I want some cold bread. No, you need to get your behind and make some hot bread. I want hot bread. I don't want no cold bread, right? This is not a game, right? What are you going to do? Verse 7 says, now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day. So he always got a spy. There goes Satan. You know, Shaitan, he always around. I know you're around. That's why you got to be watching him. Detained before Yahuwah. His name was Doeg, an Edomite. Asu, from Asu's little lineage. You know Asu, the one who lost his birthright to Yaakov, sons of Yasharal. The chief of Saul's herdmen. You see the type of people Saul like to have around him? Wickedness with wickedness, right? Wickedness with wickedness, right? That's what happened when you got wickedness with wickedness, right? Then Dawid said to him, Abimelech, then have you not here a spear or a sword at hand? Say, man, I need a sword. Why? Because you know after you eat the Qahalath bread, you know what happens, right? Because some people are going to turn into a Nephilim. Some people are going to be creating Nephilim. They ain't keeping themselves from women. Some people are going to be changing to the Malachia of Satan, Shaitan, right? They're going to be turning into giants. So get what he needs. For I have brought neither my sword nor weapons with me. So what you bringing swords and weapons to the Qahalath to consecrate yourself, and you're going to go bring swords and weapons to a place and have them pointed at people? What in the world? What is this stuff? You ain't supposed to have that. If you really consecrate yourself, you ain't got no weapons and no swords. I guess they don't want to be saved either. Got the guns in their hand and swords. I guess they don't want the Qahalath bread. They don't want to be transformed to Malachia light. Them might be the same people who might turn into the Goliath, right? Because they ain't consecrating themselves properly. And it says, because, you get what he says, my swords nor weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. Huh? Ain't we supposed to do the Pesach in haste? Didn't we just do that? You have to do it. It's Yahuwah's Pesach. You got to eat it in haste. That's why I said, if you ain't hungry, I assure you, if you were hungry, you eat it in haste. Oh, I'm hungry, boy. You're going to eat it in haste. You ain't going to know you ate bitter herbs and all these things that were good for you. You notice how when you hungry, you eat bitter herbs and everything. It feel like, I'm hungry. Because you eating bitter herbs. That's called breaking a fast, right? They say breakfast, right? You know. But it says, because the king's business required haste. Because you got to move in mat. And the priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you struck down in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. He like, give me that. Man, I got to get this giant killer, right? Because I already know these giants get ready to come up. I got to get the giant killer, man. Right? Strap that giant sword. You need your giant sword now because you already know what's getting ready to happen. But you better set apart yourself against the third day. You better get that giant sword, that giant killer, because you already know these giants getting ready to rise up, these Nephilim. And guess what? If you will take that, take it. For there is none like that here. He like, man, ain't nothing like this sword. And Dawid said, there is none like that. Give it to me. That's what you need to be like right now. Give it. Well, after you get the Qahalath bread, give it to me, because you're going to need it. Why do you think Yahushua said, you got sword? Let me read that. Right? People say, what does that mean? He said, what you mean by this? He said, give me that thing. He's like, what you mean by this? Because these are all a part of it. This is the book of Luke, Aydah, 22 and 35. Luke, Aydah, 22, 35. I'm going to say this. Actually, Luke 22, 31. Luke 22, 31. Simon, it says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan commanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. Because that's what we're eating during this time. That he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your amunah may not fail. And when you have turned again, what do you mean turned again? I mean, Satan just turned his mind. What do you mean turned again? Because he went back to Satan, Shaitan. He turned back into a molecule of Satan. That's what he did. And when you turn back into a real molecule of light again, because you went back to Satan. Because that's why Shaul said, though I or we teach any other molecule, teach any other thing other than what I said, let him be accursed. Because he's trying to show you that it can happen to anybody. And you got to know this. It ain't going to happen to me. I said, that's the person it's going to happen to. And guess what? But I have prayed for you that your amunah fail not. Because that's what Satan want to do. He want to change it into his molecule. That you take it from one amunah and Elohim, right? That's what he wants to do. Errors and doubts. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Turn again. You can't get salvation. I said turn again, which means they already had the practices that you read in 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, 3 Corinthians. All the stuff that you read about. That everybody be thinking that's some new. Man, they wrote in 1 Corinthians and 1 Peter. Man, they were doing that stuff, baby, before 1 Peter even came out. All the things that Yahushua was teaching them was already putting them in a certain state of mind. But I prayed for you, right? Going to verse 33. And the Qahalath said to him, Master, I am ready to go with you both to prison and to death. Yahushua said, I tell you, Qahalath, the rooster will not crow this day until you deny me 3 times that you know me. What do you think Qahalath is doing if he was during that time right now? The same thing he was doing before. Okay, he would be crying. Matter of fact, he was doing it all the way to that night. He was doing it all the way to that night. And he said to them, when I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, you did not lack. Did you lack anything? Did Dawi have any weapons? Did Dawi have any other things? Did he have anything? No. And who sent him out? The king sent him out, right? And he said, he sent me for such and such task, and he told me not to tell nobody what I was doing. You think them disciples told anybody, the high priest, Kahan, and the kings and the rulers, and all the people in Yasharal, what they were doing when Yahushua sent them out? No. No. Telling you nothing. Why? Because you know what happens when you tell them. They're going to try to stop you. I tell you, and he says to him, when I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, did you lack anything? Man, you ain't have no sandals on your feet. You walking barefoot. He said, why are people walking barefoot? And we already talked about that. Why do people walk barefoot? They said nothing. He said to them, but now let the one who has the money bag take it. Now he's saying, now you need to take that money bag. And likewise knapsack. And let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. He said, man, I need a sword. He's like, man, the sword of Goliath in here, man. For real? That thing in here? Give me that thing. Right? It's time, right? You gotta separate yourself, because you already know when that happens, you need to put that sword in your hand. You need to be like, it's time now to give it to me. Give me. And get what it says. For I tell you, the scripture must be fulfilled in me. So when is scripture gonna be fulfilled? That's why he says, set about yourself against the third day. It has to be. And he was numbered with the transgressors. For what is written about me has its fulfillment. And they said, look, Master, here are 2 swords. And he said to them, it's enough. Hey, people think this is a joke. And then the priest said, the sword of Goliath, that word for sword is Chhdsh. It means sword, knives, tool for cutting stone. It also means drought, cutting, destructive effect, sharp implement, an axe, a dagger, a knife, a mattock, a sword, a tool. Why? Because these are all a part of it. And you say, what is this, right? You're under Ephesians. Man, we gotta get out of here. I'm talking for a while. I ain't gonna talk too much. My goodness. It's too much. This is Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 17. Ephesians 6:17. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Ruach, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times in the Ruach, with all prayers and supplications. To that end, keep alert. Now you see why. With all perseverance, making supplications for all Chdshim, and also for me, that the words may be given to me in opening my mouth in boldness and proclaim the mystery of the truth, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak. Right? So this is what Shaul was saying. But the sword of the Ruach is what you need. Right? You gotta have it. Give it to me. Right? Give it to me. Right? That sword, that word for Goliath is Goliath. 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 His name means splendor. Goliath. It means exile. Goliath. Goliath. You say, why you call him that? Why you call him splendor? Because that's what his sword was, the one he was using. But when you start to come out, you can remember Satan has transformed himself into a molecule of light. And it's full of Goliath. It's splendor. But in actuality, the end will be according to their deeds. And that's what's going to happen. So that's why he said, give me his sword. I'm going to do something with his sword. Right? And what did David do with his sword after he killed him? He cut his head off with it. And carried the head in his yard, in his right hand. Right? And these are all the things that you have to get ready for. Right? That's the whole point. Right? This is the Dead Sea Scrolls 4Q257. These are the paths in the world to enlighten the heart of Adam. Straighten in front of him all the paths of true justice, establishing in his heart respect for the precepts of Elohim. You got to respect that stuff. In the Ruach of Aydah, of patience and generous compassion. And then you got to be patient with people because, everybody ain't going to want to do it. Generous compassion. You got to be compassionate as Yahuwah is. Eternal goodness, right? Intelligence. Remember the intelligence we taught in the second Baruch. You got to be intelligent to put away these things out of your own life. Understanding. Potent wisdom which trusts in all the deeds of Elohim and depends on his abundant mercy. That's what we got. This is mercy. A ruach of knowledge in all plans of action. Remember we talked about Qahalath. Nuach taking action, your code, waking up, awake, or Oz, Deborah, awake, or Deborah, or Sound. Right? All these are a part. You got to see it. You got to take action. Of enthusiasm, decrees of justice and set apart plans, with firm purpose of generous compassion, with all the sons of truth. Of magnificent purity, which detests all unclean idols. That means you got to be magnificent at it. You got to be more splendid than Goliath himself. You know how it is. You got to be more splendid than the Anakim and all these other kingdoms, right? Guess what it says? Of careful behavior and wisdom concerning everything. Now you see why all these things you got to cleanse yourself from, because it's all the dark waters. Of concealment, of concerning the truth and the mysteries of the knowledge. These are the foundations of the ruachs of the sons of truth, because everybody don't need to know everything. And we reward those who walk in it will be healing. So what do you think all these 16 days for? Healing. What's the other part? Plentiful shalom in a long life. What do you think it's for? Extension? Life extension? We ain't talking about no cryo chamber. fruitful offspring with an everlasting barak, eternal enjoyment in this life, and a chronic abode with majestic raiment in eternal life. Or eyes, put on your beautiful garments, son. However, the ruach of deceit belongs what? The dark waters. You know, the dark waters. Greed. He said, why you put greed? Because money is the root of all evil. It is. Sluggishness in the service of justice. You slow in giving judgment on somebody. Then your sword ain't going to be quick. They're going to be slow sword. You ain't going to kill nothing. They're going to be like the Matrix. Satan going to be like this. You going to be able to kill that man? Wickedness, falsehood, pride. Oh, there we go, that pride. We just read that. That's from Adam. Haughtiness of heart. Uh-oh. Now you done lift it up. Dishonesty. Now you start lying. Trickery. Now you start tricking people. Cruelty. Now you start being cruel to all people and all animals. Because Yahushua ain't do none of that. He ain't want no sinner. He ain't had no reason to kill no animal. Much insecurity, impatience, much foolishness. Impudent enthusiasm for appalling acts performed in lustful passions. Right? You already know all that sexual intercourse. Right? We just talked about all that sexual stuff we got to put away. Filthy past in the service of impurity. Right? You can't be impure. Like, you got to be cleansing yourself. Blasphemous tongue. Uh-oh. Vestibule. Eyulam. Right? Blindness of eyes. You can't awake. Or. You got to wake up. Hardness of hearing. Uh-oh. You know you can't hear. Stiffness of neck. That's the part of the cranial nerves. 12 cranial nerves, right? That's all the part. They said, why? It's cranial nerves. Hardness of hearing. It's cranial nerves. Hardness of heart. In order to walk in the paths of darkness, the dark waters. You hard-hearted. You walk in the dark waters. And evil cunning. Now you want Nakash. And the visitation of those who walk in it will be abundance of afflictions by the hand of the Malaki of destruction. Uh-oh. And that's the whole point. What type of Malaki? People say, what's getting ready to happen? What's getting ready to happen? Of eternal damnation by scorching wrath and of Elohim that revenges, of permanent terror and shame, without end, with humiliation and destruction by the fire of the dark regions. And they see why. One needs to make sure all these things, because you know the fire of the dark regions is Sheol. And when they come up out of the ground and they start doing things, I assure you, you want to be in right standing. And all the ages of their generations they shall spend in bitter weeping, harsh evils, in the abyss of darkness until destruction, without there being a remnant or survivor for them. Right? So how did all the giants survive? How did they come back? How did Anakim, Rephaim, Zamzuns, how Goliath and Goliath came back? How all these beings came back? How they all came back into the world after the flood? Because some people did not cleanse themselves properly, and then they ended up falling, and they thought they started to envy, and do those things like the fallen did, and then they came falling back down, and then they started to mingle in and do the same things that they did with the other sons of Elohim, and then they created giants again. Ham. Thank you, Ham. I appreciate it. Everything you've done. You've created as another cycle of destruction that's getting ready to come on the earth. And all your sorcery and your magic and your witchcraft, and your lying and your sorcery and your greed, right? And all the stuff you did to all the animals, and everything you did, and you got other people entangled with you, and Yahuwah brought them out, and they still had the residue of your behavior. And then he finally sent his son. He cleansed them from their unrighteousness. And then some 3,000 years later, everybody's trying to figure out how you managed to lie to them for almost 2,000 years. And what kind of spell you cast on us for 2,000 years. And we are kind of worried and wondering what else other lie you got down the line that you're trying to deceive us with. So therefore, we have our minds ready. Why? Because you need to. Because he got another plan to get your mind. Right? So you got to make sure that your mind is aligned with the truth. Right? That's the only way going to free you or keep you free for today. Like Chag say, hearing the exercise of myself to have a conscious word of offense toward Elohim and man. And I'm pretty good this day, though, as I speak to you. Right? You got to. Like, today I'm good, as it is this day. But tomorrow I may be a Malaki of Satan. Although I or we or any other Malaki teach any other truth other than what I said, let them be a curse. Right? That's what you're trying to tell you. That's what he's trying to tell you. And people be thinking like, yeah, you know. I'm telling you, man, this is a fight to the end. Aleph Yukanan, 1 John 2, 24 to 28. Let what you've heard from the beginning abide in you. And what you heard from the beginning abides in you. Then you will abide in the Son, one of the persons that can open the seals and the loose thereof, the Ben, the life of the house, and the Ab, the other person that can open the book and the loose the seals thereof. And this is the promise he has made to us, eternal life. I'm writing these things about those who are trying to deceive you. Who are these people? Nakash, Malaki of Satan, Shaitan. They transform themselves into it. But the anointing that you have received from him abides in you, and you have no need that anyone should teach you. But the anointing that is in you teaches you about everything, and is true, and is no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. Now, little children, abide in him, so that when he appears, no man knows the day, no hour. We may have confidence, because you did this consecration, not to shrink from him in shame at his coming, because you don't know when he's going to come back. That's why you're doing it, because he may come back. And these are all a part of this whole thing, right? Because it may happen. My son and daughter, it says, my son and daughter, go on thy business and aid new. So should I be beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more aid new, to humble thyself. And thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. Many are in high places of renown. Right? Many are high up people. Right? But mysteries are revealed unto the meek, the aid new. For the power of Yahuwah is great, and honored with the lowly. Seek not out things that are too hard for thee. He said, that's way too hard. Neither search for things that are above thy strength. Right, because everybody can't carry the sword of the light. And everybody not going to be able to wield it because they ain't cleansed themselves properly. So please don't be trying to think you can take the sword of Goliath and you ain't cleaned yourself properly. But you know, when you touch things, sometimes when you touch things, you get too much power. And you ain't cleansed properly, you end up slaying an innocent person. You end up killing somebody innocent. You be killing somebody innocent that somebody commanded you to be gentle with. And these are a part of this whole thing. Right? Because everybody does not need to know. Right? Or does not need to handle that. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters. For more things are showed unto thee than men, women, and children. And Malachim can understand. So we look at all that. We look at Yahushua Mashiach. We look at the one who became our Pesach lamb, the one who redeemed us for not for corruptible things, the silver and gold, his precious blood. But even the revelation of Yahushua Mashiach did not even appear until the third day, an understanding of who he was. But even as it is the first day of Chag Matsah, one needs to still cleanse himself from all filthiness of the flesh and ruach, and remove all the kamatz and the saur out of their tent, their leaven, and remove it out of their body, out of their hayikal, their innermost parts of their self, and the inner courts of their self, that you may be purified from all the filthiness that one has created in their own life. For it's through your own intelligence and your amunah that grows inside of you that you can extinguish the demons like a spark of fire. And you can reignite yourself, even as one illuminates and lights a fire, even as they burn things. You can burn the very things that's within you. For you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a royal kahanim, a diadem. You show forth the praise of him who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. You may burn the very things that don't need to be in your life. That you can offer things that are proper, and that you can be ready against the third day. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The Anu shall inherit the Eretz.